I know Brett's here.
Yes.
Yeah. There we go.
It does go that way.
It's your council.
I was one that. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, right.
Yes. Good afternoon. Today is Friday, January 6, 2023. A cheerful welcome and a happy new year to everyone in the room, of course, those watching online. And as most of you know, this is a special town council meeting. During today's special meeting, we will conduct interviews with 4 candidates selected for consideration to temporarily fill the at-large council. Conduct a public hearing to receive feedback on potential candidates. And before we do that, I just want to say this is a great day that the Lord has made, and it's an honor to be here for all of you. And before we dive into things, I would like to have everyone, if you're able to, please stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to the process overview and expectations, I do want to acknowledge our amazing town clerk, Mr. Alan Coleman, who has really worked tirelessly to put this process together. So I do want to give him commendation right now. So thank you for all your work. Process overview and expectations. At the council direction, staff developed a process to assist in selecting a qualified resident to temporarily fill an at-large town council seat. And the vacancy was created, as most of you know, former council member Cheryl Stallings submitted her resignation effective Sunday, December 4th, 2022. Ms. Stallings resigned from the position on the Apex Town Council as a result of her election to the Wake County Board of Commissioners. So as part of the selection process, consists of interviewing each of 4 nominated applicants, which includes asking a set of 8 predetermined questions designed to cover different topics. And those topics includes budgeting, equity, resident engagement, personal reflection, and teamwork. And each interviewee will have the opportunity to provide an introductory statement for up to 3 minutes at the beginning of each interview. As a reminder to council, each candidate has approximately 45 minutes for the entire interview. And if you will, please keep any follow-up questions focused on specific response from the candidate. So make sure we're consistent with all candidates. Please refrain from asking any follow-up questions that might elicit protected class status information such as age, marital status, disability, or similar types of questions. Everybody good with that? At the close of the interview, each candidate will be allowed an opportunity to provide closing remarks for 3 minutes. And as a reminder, this is a special meeting for the town council, which is being live streamed and recorded. An entire meeting, including the interviews, the public hearing, and the council deliberations will be open to the public. So council, at your place, you have a binder, which includes an agenda, a record of random drawings for candidate interview times, record of nominations, adopted timeline for selecting and appointing a candidate, adopted policy for filling vacancies, and each nominee's application resume and voting record provided by the Board of Elections. All right, as a reminder to council and the public, an official vote is not anticipated at the end of this special meeting. Council is expected to vote and appoint a candidate to fill the vacancy at their regular scheduled meeting, which is next Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, which will be at 6:00 p.m. start time. All right, before we move on, does council have any modifications to the predetermined interview questions? All right, hearing none. We'll move forward with the interviews. Are there any questions before we begin? Anyone? Okay. So we'll start with council candidate interview, Mr. Arno Ziegler. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Please state your name for the record and provide us and the public an introductory statement for up to 3 minutes.
Sure. My name is Arno Zegerman. First of all, I'd like to echo the mayor's comments, thanking Town Clerk Coleman for his effort putting this process together and keeping us organized. Also want to recognize the confidence that the mayor and sitting council members have expressed in my candidacy so far, which is what brings us here today. Brief overview about myself. I was born and raised in the Netherlands. After graduating college, I went to the United States in 1997, accepting a job in Cleveland, Ohio, where I got embedded and indoctrinated with US and US culture. I spent about a year before moving back to London, England for about 6 months, decided I liked the US better, and came back to Cleveland, where I ultimately met my wife, her wife, Carla, by means of Long Island, where Carla and I got married and our son Evan was born. We made our way to North Carolina in 2012 and settled in Apex in 2013. Professionally, I have built a career around what I call business operations management. That includes functions like financial planning, financial management, workforce planning, project and program management, procurement, and a relatively recent addition is sustainability management. I have been primarily employed in the information technology sector. I worked for several software companies, but also kind of always that focus on business and business management. My career has steadily progressed. I've held leadership positions for coming on 25 years now. 2019, Carol and I decided to open a small business here in Apex. We opened the start of the pandemic in the spring of 2020. After 2 years, making our way through, unfortunately, we could no longer sustain that business, and we were forced to sell that about a year ago. I only became a naturalized citizen 5 years ago. One of my primary interests in becoming a citizen was the privilege of voting, which I've been able to exercise in every election since becoming eligible. So even though I've only been a citizen for a relatively short period of time, my interest in politics and public service goes much deeper than that. I participated in the Apex Academy in 2019, which for me again cemented the value of the services that a town like Apex delivers to its residents, and the value of local government, which is has more of a direct impact on citizens. So when this position became available, that was ultimately my motivation to apply and see if I could try my hand at public service.
Thank you for that. All right, we'll start with our first question.
Good afternoon, Arno. First question is, what prior experience, either professionally or personally, do you feel has equipped you for this role?
There's a couple elements. Some I've already pointed out in my opening statement. I have 25 years of leadership experience, albeit in corporate America. I think those the skills that you require as a leader, even in a corporate setting, are very transferable to the skills that you need to bring to the table to town council members. The ability to relate to different points of view, making decisions often in the face of conflicting interests and demands. Empathy for those that you are not always able to satisfy. I think those are all skills that transfer very well. Outside of my professional career, I've had or currently still hold several community leadership positions. I'm the president of a Dutch cultural club here at the Triangle. I'm also a board member of the bicycle ministry at the Big Church here in Apex. Just regular volunteer activities as they come along. I mentioned the Apex Academy, which I think has given me a solid foundation of how the town operates, the key players in the town of Apex, and really understand and appreciate the service that the town brings forward to the town and all its employees. I'm also a Rotary International member. They're focused on service above self. Right? It's something that I can subscribe to. And again, that's what brings me here today to see if I can expand my skill into the public domain.
Afternoon, Aaron. Second question. If new resources were available, what one area of town services would you feel most needs additional resources and why?
I'm going to go with, there's so many answers to that question. I missed the one part in that question, so I'm
You read it?
a little bit. So now we're good. I'm going to go with community parks and public green spaces. And so the motivation for that is that, as the town density increases, we do want to preserve green spaces and build out the green spaces that we have to offer more recreational facilities for our residents. Currently Apex has a number of great parks, but they still require oftentimes for residents to get in the car to get to. So I would be very interested in developing more local community like parks. Again, as density increases to preserve those spaces, I think that it also aligns very well with the environmental leadership aspirations that the town has set for itself. And so, in the longer term, I think it protects the desire of Apex to be a welcoming community, continuously attracting new public, and with that, people that want to live here, people that want to do business here, right? I think it just is a longer term prospect for the town.
Thank you. A follow-up. Are there any specific projects or services you think you would like be your number one priority of what you mentioned?
There's nothing specific that jumps to mind. I think there's been opportunities in the recent past where some land came available in the area, near the downtown area that I would have loved to see the town jump on and create a public space. I'm very excited to see what the town is planning with regards to the downtown landscape and kind of the parklets type environment that are planned there. I think there's going to be parcels that are going to come up for sale, in the coming periods, right? Current farms that have not, where the land has not been swooped out by developers. Where, I think, especially since some of those already include things like small lakes and things like that are kind of natural extensions of, the current park environments that we have here many times.
Thank you.
I'll move to the next question. What is the most challenging part of budgeting for you? Please share an experience you've had in developing a budget with competing into.
So I think I have a little bit of a leg up here because financial planning and financial management is what I do for a living. So, the concept of budget management is not foreign. Most budgets will have conflicting demands, and in most cases, those demands are all valid and legit for one reason or another. So my approach to that is what I like to call more of a risk-based approach. And so it's kind of turning the table. What are we going to do versus what will happen if we do not do this, right? And so what is the operational risk? What is the business risk? What is the reputational risk of not funding a certain program? And that helps driving some level of prioritization, right? And then along with that, gather the data, understand the programs, and be able to weigh those factors to make an informed decision in your priorities.
Okay. I think I'm next. Promoting inclusion, which fosters a sense of belonging and embracing diversity, are all priority areas of the town council and town administration. Give specific examples of how you would help create an environment where differences are valued, encouraged, and supported.
So first, I want to acknowledge that the comments I'm about to make are coming from a middle-aged white guy, right? Not exactly the poster child of diversity. So keep that in mind. That being said, though, this is a topic that is dear to me, both personally and professionally. I have grown up in an environment where I have family with disabilities. Some of the best friends that I made in life are gay. I've had the good fortune of working in international companies, working with people from all sorts of backgrounds and cultural heritage. I'm married to a woman who's, fiercely protective of women's rights and will not let me get away with anything other than that. So I do believe that's as far as middle-aged white people go, I've been fortunate to have those experiences, and that has shaped my outlook. Honestly, I think that's diversity, equity, and inclusion begins with having an open and honest conversation, right? Like we gotta acknowledge that there's issues that need to address, so that we can put the actions in place, to celebrate our differences, right? And so to that end, I'm extremely proud and supportive of a lot of the newer events that I've seen develop in town over the last number of years. Gay Pride, Juneteenth, Black Heritage Month, Women's Heritage Month, and Heritage Month. So I think that's as a council member, I would not only support those events. I would look to build on them. For one specific example, I don't think we do anything to celebrate our Asian community, right? And I think that's something I would like to see changed. The other thing is, within town staff, treating diversity, equity, and inclusion as a priority effort in our staffing and hiring, so that the town staff reflects the population of APEX. And maybe taking a page out of the corporate environments that I work in, like having what we call employee support groups. People that rally around a certain minority or a certain social issue, both people that identify with that issue, but also people that are advocates and allies, for that issue. I see an opportunity for some of those practices to be included here in town as well.
All right, Arno, please provide an example of when your ethics and personal character were challenged, and how did you respond?
So I'm going to give you an example from 2019. I did a brief stint as a business consultant. So a company that I started working for, they sent us to a very lengthy 10-day immersive training. So it was 10 days away from home. After which they sent us immediately out to our first assignment. And so the assignment I was given was a particular challenging one. It was not going well, despite being at the business I was working for until 11, 12 at night, collecting all the data that I could, working with the utmost integrity and intent, being transparent to my project manager around the challenges that I was facing. At some point I get on the phone with the consulting director, who affronted me, questioned my integrity, questioned my capability. And for all intents and purposes, faulted me for this engagement going south. And so ultimately that engagement did not complete. I was affronted, I was offended, I was upset. And, especially since I felt slighted, because I had invested so much and acted with, all the integrity and all the capability I could bring to bear, right? And then being affronted in such a way just didn't go down well. Also, I was not getting any new assignments after that, since the consulting directors were responsible for new assignments. I pretty quickly picked up on the fact that I was not getting a new assignment, whereas my peers and colleagues were. So, at some point I had to swallow my pride and say, okay, listen, this is not the way that we're going to resolve this. I can be upset about this all day long, but that's not going to resolve the issue. I called the instructor that's who went through the training with us, who validated for me my skill and capability, and effectively confirmed that it wasn't exactly on me, that I had done everything right the way that I was taught, and so forth. I also called that consulting director to talk things out, even though I could not convince him see things my way. Within a couple of days, the assignment started flowing. So, sometimes you have to swallow your pride. One thing I was going to say in my opening statement, but I didn't. I think just the progression of age, right? And the wisdom and the maturity that you build, as you get older and further in your career. I think that's something that has helped there. Like 10 years ago, I would not have dealt with a situation as gracefully as I was able to do a few years ago.
Thank you so much.
Running back to me, how will you manage competing requests of constituents?
I don't think that is very different from the business environments that I currently operate in. And so, like I said, I've got 25 years of progressive leadership experience. At some point I had 200 plus people under direct management. And so you're going to face decisions where you're going to make some people happy and other people will be less excited about the outcome of the decisions that you're going to make. I think my answer to that is transparency. I think most people are reasonable, and even though they may not like the outcome that you came to, if you can show them the logic that you went through, the data that you acted on, most people will accept the decision. Right? Again, they may not like it, but they will accept that the decision was made for reasons that are traceable. I think the key in all of this is that everybody, all constituents need to be heard and need to have a voice. And so even though there's people out there that may not agree with you out of general principle, those are still constituents that need to be represented, and those voices need to be included in the decision-making process. So it's about being open to receive that feedback, but also being open to give the feedback once a decision is made. Thank you.
Another follow-up, and I'm risking having these things over and over again, another three. In my experience, a lot of times there are maybe residents in close proximity to something oppose it, and the community-wide may benefit from a project. And so can you describe how you would balance kind of people that are most affected, maybe having a different opinion than the community-wide opinion?
At the end of the day, town council represents all the effects, right? And so we need to be the voice of 74,000 residents. And again, there will be projects, Specail is a prime example of that, right? There will be people whose properties will be affected by the completion of certain sections of the Specail. I think we need to empathize with that. Like, I think we need to hear those voices. I also think that, we need to look for, methods of fair compensation, right? If property values are being impacted, for example, right? It's like, how do we keep people whole? So we're not really sticking it to some for the benefits of the others, right? And so, again, I think it's about, understanding the challenge, right? Being, as forthcoming and accommodating as we can be. But at the end of the day, it comes down to, what is truly, the need and the greater good in the long term. And so that needs to outweigh some of those concerns.
All right, I got the next one. What is your favorite part of public service? Why? What is your least favorite part? Why?
I think the favorite part, and then going back to the APEC Academy experience here, is the service itself. Seeing how immediate and generally much more positive local government's impact is on the life of residents, right? And so, especially in a time of diversity, that's our national politics, right? How we still at the local level can serve people, very effectively and very immediately, and generally much more positively than the big politics, so to speak. And I think that ranges from fixing a pothole by the town works department to reliable electricity delivery, the personal safety provided by our first responders, right? Like having that immediate impact and influence and in the quality of lives of residents, I think is what really excites me. The not so exciting part, being on live stream TV, just all in the open. I come from corporate world where this does not happen, right? And then like we talked about earlier, there will always be people that get disenfranchised with some of the decisions that you make. There will always be detractors and criticism, and to be kind of in the constant public eye and dealing with that criticism, in the face of your best intent, your best capability, your best effort is something that I think I will need to get used to.
Please provide an example of how you were able to work through a problem when you disagreed with team members about something that was very important to you.
Again, I'm going to give you an example from my professional experience. This is a situation where I was working for one of the software companies where I was responsible for the global support of several of our product lines. So I had teams in the US, India, Europe, to cover the 24/7 client base that we served. And so this particular product line, the way that team was slanted, I had about 20 people in Massachusetts, 3 people in India, and I think only 1 person in Europe to support this particular product line. So to provide effective weekend coverage, the team in the US needed to carry pagers, and so they had a weekend shift about once every 2 months or so where they were on call. Which was inconvenient for them, right? And so at some point, the team came to me with a proposal to eliminate their weekend shift here in North America, and their proposal was to basically push the work to India. And so, no regard for the lives of their colleagues in India, complete wrong interpretation of work culture and work ethics. Oh, it's okay for people to work the night shift in India. They're used to that. That kind of commentary is what I got. And so void of cultural understanding, void of even basic human civility, if you will, right? I had a real issue with that particular proposal, and so it took effort. So these people were so wrapped around the idea that they were going to get rid of this weekend shift. Clearly they had socialized this amongst themselves before one of my managers brought it to me for review. That it took some real effort to make them see why this was not a valid or viable proposal, right? And the impact on somebody else that proposal would ultimately result into. So. That's an area that's again I felt strongly, like everyone felt strongly about the lack of understanding, lack of empathy towards their colleagues that I had to work through with the team.
Arno, there was a question. We're done.
That was quick. Like you had another couple. I can until 3:15.
Well done. So you have interest, appreciate your interest in serving as a town council member for, of course, the great town of Apex. And at this time, you have 3 minutes to present closing remarks to us.
I'm gonna try to keep it brief. I've been in the U.S. for 26 years. Although I've only been eligible to vote out of the last 5 of those 26. My interest in politics and public service, goes beyond that 5 years. And so, especially over the last decade or so, as our national politics became more and more divisive, I really started to appreciate the value of local government, and so that has ultimately motivated me to sign up for the Apex Academy program that was a little bit of a foreshadowing of my interest in participating and running for town council at some point in the future. So when this opportunity came along, it didn't take much convincing to jump on it. I'm truly impressed by the work that this town council and recent town councils has done with Apex. We mentioned a couple of examples earlier. I think that generally the town is in good shape to manage its future growth, but that work is not yet done. And I think I can have a meaningful and positive, impact and contribution to that future work within the town. I hope that my qualifications and my work experience are clear, and that it generally aligns like I feel with the position of the town council member. And I'm really looking forward to the rest of the afternoon and learning more.
Yeah, thank you so much. Taking this opportunity.
All right. Thank you
Mr.
very much.
Mayor, if I may ask one point that's not in our schedule. Sure. Whenever we have arguments in front of the Fourth Circuit, one of the things that the bench will do is they'll come off and they'll shake the hand of the person who was up there. Maybe we do that. I think that'd be a great way to say it.
Yes, sure thing.
This guy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, man. I love this. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Right? Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I was, yeah.
Okay.
And being first, and yeah.
Gotta make sure.
The whole process. So, yeah, it's, a couple minutes to hold out. Yeah.
Once, yeah, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Should have thought about this before.
Basically, how you're balancing.
Aspects of our family is,
Okay.
right now.
Which, and with different, possible positions on that, I guess. Say it.
Especially the
That's what that is.
Yeah, I mean, like, our individual.
That's right. That makes us very.
Okay.
Yeah.
Personally, my.
That may work.
That was just like what I do.
Hot mic, hot mic.
Not my.
Last stream.
Mayor Pro Tem gets back.
I enjoy standing behind you at the Pledge of Allegiance.
There.
It took me back to my Air Force days.
Well, we have to be late.
Yeah.
I was like, he's standing in
Does
the.
the public hearing, does it matter if it's at 5:30? Just like, or whenever.
I think.
We need to, we'll have a break between that.
Yeah.
The last one. Okay.
That's right, yeah. Gentlemen, Mr. Barnes wants to proceed.
Okay. That's not, yeah.
So, Mayor Pro Tem goes back.
You know, actually, I struck that out from my nose, but then I said it. Yeah, like, this is exactly it. When I was in your last night, they go, let that sound.
With it.
I'm not surprised. This is not a surprise.
Okay.
So I didn't really know where you were headed. Thank you for reference.
Oh, no, we get it. It's, to me, it's always a great thing when, like, during oral arguments, we'll be up there and, we'll have 30 minutes going on.
Everyone but
Thank
you.
I'm good. How are you?
Rested now.
Whenever we have.
Good. I'm not really, because I have a good problem. It's a good problem to have, is I gotta build up some time. I have some trips planned for this year.
Oh, that's nice.
And I worked the entire time. The
Wow,
holidays.
wow.
And everybody else was like off, and I was like, oh.
I was thinking.
You just gotta step ahead of
Having
all.
practiced.
That's right. Well,
Yes.
Yes.
That's got
All
a
right.
thing that says, we're different, we're kind of much more homey like.
Yeah,
And it always is a nice way of being able to like decompress for a second, like, all right, good. I gotta do this. I'm not kidding.
They require a little bit of soul searching,
Yeah.
like they are.
Katie, is this from you?
That's close enough.
Thank you.
Yeah, but, yeah. You're done.
Where are you visiting? So Columbia or Columbia, South Carolina? Columbia. Okay. That's what I thought we.
Yeah, if you would, I mean,
Yeah, I would take the tree.
I see that.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you doing?
Yeah. Okay, wait it out. Go down for the storm.
all right, I will bring things back to order here. And John Marshall Barnes III is scheduled for 3:15. However, he has agreed to move forward now. So we'd like to call him to present questions at this time. Mr. Barnes, thanks for being here today.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yes. So please state your name for the record and provide us in a public introductory statement up to 3 minutes.
All right, my name is John Marshall Barnes III. I live at 103 South Salem Street, downtown Apex. North Carolina native, grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina. And been in Apex, co-owner of a business downtown Apex, the antique store, and we're now going on our 25th year. I've actually lived in Apex since 2000. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Marshall, looks like I have the first question. If you're ready. What prior experience, either professionally or personally, do you feel has equipped you for this role?
Mainly my 31 and a half years experience with North Carolina state government. Of that, about 23 years was with the Department of State Treasurer in the Retirement Systems Division. And the last 8.5 years of my state service was with the North Carolina General Assembly and Fiscal Research Division. I have 14 years of experience managing the accounting, benefit determination, payment, and record keeping functions of the North Carolina Public Employee Retirement Systems that covered approximately 800,000 public employees. Also had 8.5 years of experience with the Fiscal Research Division of the General Assembly, working on North Carolina state budget development. I have the ability to work objectively, independently, collectively, and impartially. And am an analytical thinker.
All right. How you doing, Marshall?
That was
So I got the second question here. If new resources were available, what one area of town services would you feel most needs additional resources and why?
To be absolutely honest with you, I don't have a good working knowledge currently of Apex's $178 million annual budget. With that said, I am Apex resident. For the most part, I believe that our town services, and I read that question as one area of services that you would concentrate on. I do find most services to be adequate. I do believe, however, that we are only as good as our employees. So what I would be interested in knowing and looking at would be employee turnover rates, employee compensation rates, to ensure that Apex is being competitive with surrounding municipalities, and to ensure that our turnover is not too high. And as you know, employee turnover is potentially substantial cost. And if we can avoid that cost, then that cost could be used to provide better services, perhaps to our residents. I'm also interested in reviewing our fire and police staffing levels, like to make sure that those staffing levels are keeping pace with our population growth. When we opened our store in 1998, I have a copy of an Apex Herald newspaper. In May of '98, it said that our population had just reached 14,400. So now we're in the neighborhood of 70,000. And I want to make sure, we'd like to make sure that our, for one, police and fire staffing levels are appropriate for a population that size. And lastly, I would be interested in looking at streets that are under the responsibilities of the town of Apex to see, being with the population growth comes more traffic. And while I believe that Apex controls just a small amount of streets around town, what improvements we could make there, I think would be beneficial to our town residents.
And Marshall, do you have one specific project or service that you would prioritize from what you said?
And I think the more broader general thing that I would look at, and I don't know, it seems like there might have been some recent compensation studies as far as the town employees are concerned. To me, that's very important, because I know we've got a lot of competition here with other municipalities. We've got so many right around us. And I would hate to see that we're losing good employees to those other municipalities. You know, I think that's what makes us, that's part of what makes us a good town.
So I've got the third question. So what is the most challenging part of budgeting for you? Please share an experience you've had in developing a budget with competing demands.
I think the most challenging part of budget be having to make budget cuts due to a lack of funding when the need or demand still exists. As far as developing a budget with competing demands, as the principal fiscal analyst of the fiscal research division, one of my primary responsibilities was to determine the cost associated with various salary increase proposals for government employees. And that included all of the legislative branch, judicial branch, executive branch employees, as well as university employees, community college employees, and public school employees, state funded public school. So we always had a competing interest or among the various different employee groups for varying salary increases, as well as having differences in competing interest between the members of the House and Senate.
Okay, I'm next. Promoting inclusion, which fosters a sense of belonging, and embracing diversity are all priority areas of the town council and town administration. Give specific examples of how you would help create an environment where differences are valued, encouraged, and supported.
I'd like to partially answer this question by telling a short story. Might be a little bit different, but we're going to do it. August 16th, 1977, I decided to take a visit to see my grandmother, who lived out in the country in Vance County, North Carolina. When I got there, she asked me if I would drive to town, pick up a prescription for a drugstore. I'm in the car for 1964 Dodge Coronet, driving to downtown Henderson, North Carolina, listening to the local radio station. That's all you could pick up on the AM station or AM radio that was in our car. They announced on the radio that Elvis Presley, which kind of upset me a little bit because I was not a huge fan, but I was an Elvis fan. I get to the drugstore, pick up the prescription. Everybody in the drugstore is talking about Elvis's death. Here I am driving back to my grandmother's house, debating with myself whether to even tell my grandmother that Elvis had died, thinking in my mind, she probably didn't even know who Elvis Presley was. So I get back, go in, sit down, and I tell her what had happened. She looks at me, my 80-year-old grandmother, looks at me, says, "I'm very sorry to hear that." She said, she said, "I really like the way that boy moved." I tell that story partly because I learned fairly quickly that people and things are not always as they may seem. And unless you promote inclusion and diversity, you miss out on a heck of a lot. Promoting both of those allows you to benefit by the experiences and knowledges of other people that you wouldn't have otherwise, and can help you make better and more informed decisions. Speaking of diversity, I believe the council could use a little more. And what I mean by that is, age diversity. I do think some of y'all in this room may not have even been born August of 1977. I don't know. Hopefully y'all know who Elvis Presley was. But I do want you to know that I could feel that feeling.
Walter, please provide an example of when your ethics and personal character were challenged. How did you respond?
During one of the downtown festivals a couple of years ago, it was one of the festivals that there was a beer tent. It might have been a music fest. I'm not sure which one it was. But people were allowed to carry alcoholic beverages on the sidewalks. Normally that's not permitted, but during this particular event, it was permitted. And people were allowed to carry alcoholic beverages into the various stores downtown. We had one customer that was somewhat intoxicated, and he started making derogatory and discriminatory comments against the LGBTQ plus community. I quickly told him that his comments were inappropriate, would not be tolerated in our store. Told him that he was not welcome in our store. Escorted him to the door. That kind of touches a little bit on some concerns that I have. I know there's been some discussions among y'all to consider a social district in downtown Apex. If you go down that road, I hope that you will consider that the likelihood of such instances may increase when you throw that in the mix. The other experience that we had in our store, you need to consider how to better manage discarding the waste that's created by that. So, typically we don't have people in the store leaving empty containers here and there or having containers throughout the store. But on that particular day, it was very noticeable and was a bit of a problem.
Thank you.
Yes.
Council, The next question is, how will you manage competing requests from constituents?
I think many times, your government laws, ordinances, policies, et cetera, would provide a path, if not a solution to be requests. Absent that, I think competing requests should go first to those that would have a positive impact on and that would affect the greatest number of people. The only exception to that I have or may think of would be if the issue is negative and if the people affected by that have a financial investment. And in that instance, particularly if it would impact their financial well-being, perhaps that should be the exception.
Okay. You kind of talked, I guess, touched on it. If you want to expand, the follow-up is, how would you anticipate dealing with projects where residents nearby might oppose the project while the community as a whole might benefit?
So, I mean, I think that kind of depends on, in my mind, what the issue is. Maybe help me a little bit clarify what you want me to get at. If it's a developer coming in that has proposed something that is not in line with the current ordinances, and you've got residents nearby that would be affected if a change is made, then I've got a little problem, overriding set policy in that instance. So is that something you're talking about, or is it?
I mean, I guess I think development is kind of a common one we have, and I think we encounter a lot of developments that are proposed that they meet the ordinances, they meet the land use, but the people who live there are concerned about traffic or school capacity, or they thought the woods or the road would never connect or would never be built behind them. That's a very common occurrence in my experience, and people close by often oppose. It seems like especially the housing developments. Whereas you could argue that the community as a whole might benefit from increased housing, property value, connectivity, all the things that come with development.
So, in that instance, I mean, if the proposal meets the current ordinances, you as a board, there's not a whole lot you can do to not permit that to happen. North Carolina it's sort of interesting, and it's always seems like we're almost always behind because the town government approves the building. State and county maintains the roads. The county maintains the public school systems. So it's like everything is sort of lagging behind. Traffic issues are very real issues. But again, I think, there's not a whole lot that you can do if all the check boxes are checked.
I find that lag the most challenging part of this job, personally. Yeah, so I think that identified what I've been dealing with, I think, for a while now.
And I think that was probably would be one of the hardest parts of your job is, how to communicate, I guess, your decisions and your actions under those circumstances.
Next question. What is your favorite part of public service? Why? What is your least favorite and why?
So my favorite part of public service is the opportunity and ability to assist other people. So sort of did that a lot in managing the public retirement systems for the North Carolina public employees. And I always got a reward from being able to help somebody with their benefits or whatever their situation may be. My least favorite part of public service is dealing with people who do not take responsibility for their own actions or inactions, as the case may be, and are looking for somebody to bend or ignore the rules to their benefit. And those people are out there.
Last question. Please provide an example of how you were able to work through a problem when you disagreed with team members about something that was very important to you.
I think one thing that comes to mind is that we were tasked with drafting legislation to create a disability income program for state employees. And while we had hired a consultant, had given us general guidelines as to what the benefits were or how they should be laid out, we were tasked with, drafting the legislation, determining and working out all the details of the program administration. My boss actually wanted to bypass an issue that would ease administration of the program. And I sort of ended up convincing him that, that wasn't in line with the mission or the guidelines. And so we were able to work through that. And I did convince him that we should go down a slightly different path, even though administratively it would be a little bit more burdensome. But that was within the true mission and the true guideline of our task.
Okay. All right, that was the final question. And again, I want to thank you for your interest in serving the residents of Town of Apex. And right now we have up to 3 minutes.
All right, I'll be short and sweet. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I appreciate your consideration. I think that I can bring perhaps some unique experiences to this council. And if you're holding a lot of retreat tonight, strong best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Handshake.
Yeah. We got to by the same way, right?
Rick. Man, who was the elder? Let's take we got a little break here, so let's take a recess, 15 minutes right now. So feel free to move around.
The 3:45?
3:45.
Okay, thanks.
I'm good.
Not enough shot.
Remember on Hudson's building.
The almost hard to call beers. That's right. And so we would need to ask all our follow-ups at the very beginning, but it's like, you don't always pick up the things.
All right, thanks everyone for your patience. We're back in session. And before we move on to the next candidate, I do want to acknowledge one of our amazing staff members that's in the house, celebrity, Officer Chris Stewart. Thank you for being here today, sir. Thank you. All right, so the next candidate we have is, she ducked up again, and she has decided she would like to proceed. She's scheduled for 4 o'clock, but we'd like to call you up and welcome you now. Thank you.
You can sit or stand and.
Yeah, you can have a seat right there. It's perfect. Then you have 8 questions today. We have 8 questions for you, but we would like to have you start with a 3-minute introduction. So.
Sure. Hello, my name is Shukafra Hakeem. I've been living in the town of Apex for over 10 years. This town has become kind of a treasure of sorts, and I'm very excited to be here today. I have been working in North Carolina region for over a decade. My interests have spanned across education, nonprofits, and technology. And I look forward to sharing my experience with the council members and learning more about where our shared interests are as well.
Thank you.
I have a first question. What prior experience, either professionally or personally, do you feel has equipped you for this role?
That's a really good question. As I mentioned, I've worked in the North Carolina region for over a decade and doing work in the nonprofit space, volunteer work with the North Carolina Asian Americans Together organization, as well as being a precinct official for the Wake County Board of Elections. These areas of expertise, along with, making sure that there's a healthy interest in environmental preservation. These are some of the things that I feel have prepared me professionally and personally to be a town council member.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I have the second question here. If new resources were available, what one area of town services would you feel most needs additional resources and why?
That's a really good question. I made sure to review a lot of the information on the town council's website as well. And this is what I focused on. I think there needs to be an emphasis on infrastructure development by avoiding rapid growth. This involves increasing access to housing, transportation, language access, and small business development, and encouraging ethical entrepreneurship. I think it's important to create public spaces that center environmental preservation and programs for youth. Most importantly, what is important, especially in the area of quality of jobs and employment, the wages need to be sustainable, and that starts with the investment in the labor force, whether it be through educational collaborations or working with businesses that provide vocational training as well.
And I had a follow-up. Do you have one specific project or service that you would make as the highest priority in the budget?
Budget. Wow. It would definitely be transportation access. That would be an area of importance because getting around Apex is a huge issue. And it was something that came across as important, transportation access and having mobility. When I worked in the human services industry in a nonprofit focusing on culturally specific services. So transportation would be something that I would emphasize.
Okay,
Yep.
well, I think it'd be another follow-up. Do you have, when you say transportation, are you meaning roads or pedestrian, bicycle?
All of it.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
I have a third question. What is the most challenging part of budgeting for you? Please share an experience you've had in developing a budget with competing demands.
Thank you. This is a very important question, Audra. I think the most challenging part of budgeting that came across my purview involved working with culturally specific services and programs and the Governor's Crime Commission. The hardest part of developing a budget is understanding which programs need more funding and proposing and advocating for multi-year program budgets. And I think that was the hardest challenge, was proposing a budget that would invest in multi-year focus and growth, instead of just thinking about projects that look at short-term goals.
And the next one, promoting inclusion, which fosters a sense of belonging, and embracing diversity are all priority areas of the town council and town administration. Give specific examples of how you would help create an environment where differences are valued, encouraged, and supported.
Thank you for this question. I am someone that identifies as South Asian and Muslim, and so I understand the intricacies of facilitating a welcoming place and going beyond teaching tolerance. These skills were heavily developed in the classrooms that I taught in, and where I created safe spaces for all folks, regardless of gender identity and background. And so this is going to be a space that I continue to do my work in, especially in maintaining a gender democracy and spaces where people feel are welcomed in their identities, regardless of where they live, work, or play, especially. I hope I answered your question.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Got the, please provide an example of when ethics and personal character were challenged, and how did you respond?
This is a really good question, Doc. A recent example where I can talk about ethics and my personal character being challenged involves the increasing scrutiny and discrimination that I was noticing towards the Asian American community and communities of color. And so for me, it became really important that I look beyond the dialogue that was being facilitated by a few public officials in the space. And it became important to reestablish trust in the community and creating a space where stereotypes did not become normalized. I did this by, making sure that I create communication campaigns that worked to address these specific issues, and then also working to address the needs of folks dealing with discrimination, especially in the space that I was in, seeing a lot of inconsistencies to care for Asian American women that were bearing the brunt of this discrimination. And so it became really important for me to kind of break down those tropes and really facilitate dialogue across differences. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you.
I have the sixth question. How will you manage competing requests from constituents?
I feel like that the requests from constituents are always competing, but at the same time, it's very important to focus on the similarities as well. Some of the ways in the past that I have addressed competing requests has involved taking a diplomatic approach to community-based interests and really having a healthy balance of creating transparent communication between the community and what the expectations are from a person who is on the town council. And I hope I answered your question there.
Thank you.
And a quick follow-up, if you would. How would you anticipate dealing with projects where the residents nearby might oppose the project, while the community as a whole would benefit from the project?
I think the first part would be to really understand where the opposition is coming from, understanding what their preferences, viewpoints are. But at the same time, if there is more of a focus on the good for a whole community entirely, it's really weighing those preferences versus there's more of a opportunity to create good for the whole versus only focusing on specific input. I hope I answered your question.
Right. The next question is, what is your favorite part of public service? Why? And what is your least favorite part?
Been doing a mixture of public service for the past 7 years, whether it be in the nonprofit space or in education. I think the most fulfilling part of public service is really being down to earth and being connected to the people, knowing what their concerns are, and kind of breaking past the hierarchies that may come up in the field. I think public service really teaches you the importance of community, and it really gives you the skills that are important to build a common ground and understanding of what the important aspects are in the public space. I think my least favorite aspect of public service for me is really establishing a healthy balance during an age where online connectedness and social media has become a norm. I think it's really important that media tools are effective to engage with the public, but there really needs to be a balance as to how these tools are being utilized as well.
So I have the last question. Please provide an example of how you were able to work through a problem when you disagreed with team members about something that was very important.
I believe that healthy conflict is an important part of teamwork. Oftentimes it can be a good antidote to groupthink. In my personal experience, conflict can be managed by respecting different viewpoints and coming to a place of shared interests. Dialogue and facilitating across differences are skills that are and continue to be important in any field, but I honed these skills in the human services field, especially when I was focusing on youth violence showing up as an issue in my community. What really became important, because there are multiple perspectives and layers depending on ethnic, religious, and social backgrounds, it really became important to emphasize the importance of what the youth needs to address these issues coming across in the space of youth violence, and really pushing to make multiple stakeholders understand the impact of these issues, and that to think of these issues from a long-term perspective. I think for me, what was really important is addressing my own biases, and then also looking to contact and learn from people that come from different perspectives, and really respecting those perspectives as well. One more thing that became really important was knowing, who is delegating tasks, taking on leadership roles, and really fostering creativity in how we're addressing 21st century issues. But in my perspective, a lot of these issues have persisted since the beginning of time. Is just knowing which tools and which community members that care about these issues and will come together to a common ground and really address these points. Thank you.
So if there was a final question, again, thank you for coming out and your interest to serve the rest of the town of Apex. At this time, you have 3 minutes for closing remarks.
I just want to say that I'm very grateful to live in the town of Apex, where it's becoming very rare in communities to respect and understand each other's opinions, especially when it comes to discussions related to democracy. And so I want to make sure that I continue giving back to this town, regardless of whatever platform or space that I'm in. And I want to thank you all for your public service during a time where I think, public service folks, especially frontline workers, have really had their patience tested. And so I really want to thank you all for continuing to, put out the little fires that come up as well. So thank you.
Thank you again for your time. Thank you.
All right.
Keep on, shake everybody's hand.
Everybody's like, everybody wants to run.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much. Very nice to meet you. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, we have the next candidate, which is Tayon Nancy, excuse me. And we'll begin that interview at 4:30. So we'll take a recess now until 4:25. Thank you everyone for your patience. We are back in session and we're down to our final candidate, Ms. Tayon Dancy. I'd like to welcome you to the seat.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a much anticipated day.
Right, very well. Okay, please state your name for the record and provide us and the public an introductory statement up to 3 minutes.
Yes, so my name is Tayon Dancy. My address is 1946 Post Rail Lane. So that's for the record, but I want to actually list all of my names for the purposes of the next part. I am Tayon Nicole Williams Dancy, and I say all 4 names because they all make up who I am, where I'm from, and where I am going. They all carry within life experiences of a smart little girl that grew up in a very humble neighborhood, a very humble upbringing, the one who was very vocal then, the one who is still vocal now, the one who is an advocate, and one who loves people. Since I was a little girl, I've loved to push the envelope to say, why are we doing this? How are we doing this? Is there another way to do this so that we can continue to improve the places where we live, where we work, et cetera. So I am excited to be here today. My humble upbringing was from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So I am also a native North Carolinian. You don't find very many of us here. Sometimes a lot of people have come from New York, New Jersey, but native North Carolinian. I grew up in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I went to school in UNC Charlotte in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then my MBA from here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I've been living here for about 24 years. So again, I love Apex. It is truly the peak of good living. I've lived here ever since I left college. So when I was kind of taking a look at this, I said, when I left college, it was in the 1990s. I come here and there was nothing much in the area where I moved. There were trees, there was a grocery store, there was one gas station. There was no building for the gas station. I was like, what is this? The only way you could pump gas was to use your card right there off of Highway 55. And so we have come so far just watching Apex grow substantially. So I would love to be a part of how we continue to move Apex forward.
Thank you so much for that. All right, let's go to the first question, Councilman Gray.
Good afternoon. I've got the first question. What prior experience, either professionally or personally, do you feel has equipped you for this role?
So for my prior experience, I am a manager, project and program manager. Those are all roles that I have fulfilled in my career, which has been in the IT software industry. And so in that particular industry and in that those responsibilities, you're always managing budgets, you're managing people, you're managing projects and deliverables. There are many things that come into play when you're managing projects. Who are the people that you're delivering it to? Who are the ones who need to provide input, the stakeholders? And so it's important to get information from people as you're preparing these projects. Managing across cultures, across demographics. I've managed teams out of China. I have people on my team that are from India, from other locations, young, seasoned, all ages. And so you, as a program project manager, sometimes you don't have the human resource responsibility. They're not reporting to you. You're not defining their performance, but you still need to influence them. And so that takes skill, it takes negotiation, it takes a different type of leadership to be able to influence when you don't manage who those people are. I also have been on nonprofit boards. So Wake Up Wake County is one I want to call out because I think it's in line with what we're trying to do here in Apex. Transportation was the focus, land use, environmental, water, housing, you know, all of these things we focused on from a board perspective with Wake Up Wake County. And the key message while I was on the board was sustainable growth. When I was looking at the information, I also chaired the Census 2020 for part of this area. And looking at the census growth of our town, back in the 1990s, during the time frame I moved here, we had 5,000-ish people. That grew substantially like that next 10-year period that came in 2000. It was huge. And so how do we prepare for that growth? How do we look ahead to where the statistics are showing that we're going to go in the future? Are we gonna see another jump like that? Are we planning for that? Are we prepared for that? And so that's some of the things that we need to look for. I looked to see where we landed in 2020. So we went from 5,000 back in 1990s. That was not that long ago. It's almost 60,000 something here now. That's huge. And so the town has been doing a great job of trying to manage that, even with some of the things that you were speaking about earlier, Councilman Brett. It was, looking at the challenging things that comes with infrastructure, all of these things. We got to think about all of that as we're planning to move forward. And then lastly, Delta Sigma Theta sorority. I have had the opportunity since I was a young girl looking at all of these deltas that were in the community. They were my teachers. They were leading. They were mentoring me. They were saying, you have a way out. You have a way to succeed. And they took me under their wings. And not only that, when I went to college, I wanted to be a Delta. Where are those Deltas? That's what I want to be, and became a Delta. And they immediately took me under their wings to offer me many leadership opportunities. And so I've had the opportunity to train. I have been chairs at the local level. I've been in leadership roles at the local, state, and our regional levels, even in areas such as social action, where I trained all of our North Carolina chapters on how to advocate, how to create policy, how to go to the General Assembly and talk about the issues and things like that. And I currently serve as the regional chaplain for this organization as well. And so those are different areas where I have been exposed to, and they bode well for me in this role.
Thank you. All right. Good afternoon. I have the next question here. If new resources were available, what one area of town services would you feel most needs additional resources and why?
So this was a very interesting question. I'll start by saying I don't feel that I would be the one that should determine that specific area. I think we would want to look broad at the different departments. We talk about our values here, and I saw the word peak, where we're looking at performance, we're looking at empowerment. So I landed on that word empowerment. I think it's important that we empower the departments and the people to have feedback into where are we going. What we should be doing is just ensuring that there is a strategy, that we have an approved strategic plan. And then as the departments are doing their roll-ups and saying, here's where I think we need to go, here's what I think needs to be done, then they can provide that feedback into us as we're preparing for budget approvals. The other thing, if I had to say which area of town services, I was talking about this earlier, where we're looking at infrastructure, sustainable growth. We have to think about infrastructure when it comes to sustainable growth. And so I don't think that's one that we can leave on the table. We need to understand where we are today, understand where we're going. There will certainly be challenges in decision making as we try to determine, what's the flow of traffic here? Do we need to change something up? I remember when I moved here and I was working in RTP, and 55 was one lane this way, one lane the other way. My commute was insane to work, but there was no other way around it. And if it rained, if I left 10 minutes later, then I may as well wait before I go into the office. And so to have now other opportunities to get on highways, to get on even some of our back roads, sometimes I like to take the scenic route to get to where I'm going. And so those are things we need to think about, because it was difficult sometimes as a mom to get to work, get back home, get to volleyball practice, get to soccer, get to these things because I'm sitting in traffic, as opposed to getting to the town where I live so that I can go do the things that I want to do in the town.
And a follow up, first I'll say is, I also work in RTP, and I've heard it was a nightmare back then, and lights are now. Do you have one specific project or service that you would prioritize among what you said?
Yeah, so again, I think it would be looking at our infrastructure as it relates to our traffic flow, our towns, as we look at our services that we provide, when we look at the sustainable growth. How are we handling the people that are coming into the area? We need to look at our water and sewage. If we're building more houses, how are we planning for that? So I would scope it more at looking at the data. I'm a data analytics kind of person too. So I always like to look at the data and let the data help guide me to where we need to go and where we need to focus.
Thanks.
Question.
What is the most challenging part of budgeting for you? Please share an experience you've had in developing a budget with competing demands.
Challenging part of budgeting. So the most challenging part in my experience in the nonprofits as well as in business tends to be prioritization. Because even if we empower people to bring their proposals forward to say, this is where my budget is today, this is where I believe it needs to go, and this is why, everybody is passionate about their thing and their space. And so what ends up happening in the roles that I've been in is then you have to look at the priorities based on our strategic planning. Where are we going as a business? Where are we going as a nonprofit? What are we trying to do in the community? Where are we trying to have impact? And then you do an evaluation of those budget items to say, how does this align? Another area you can look at is the business value. So how are we associating business value to what the proposals are? Where are we going to get the biggest bang for our buck? Where are we going to get the biggest impact for our community? Sometimes we have long-term projects, and those are okay. But sometimes because we're thinking so far ahead about the long-term projects, the short ones that don't take as long, that we can get done and can have some immediate impact on the community, perhaps we should look at those and push some of those forward and then move back to, all right, here are those long-term plans that we need to do. That way you're having some immediate impact while still planning the long-term goals as well as you go forward.
Okay, promoting inclusion, which fosters a sense of belonging, and embracing diversity are all priority areas of the town council and town administration. Give specific examples of how you would help create an environment where differences are valued, encouraged, and supported.
Okay, so that kind of encompasses three things for me. It's diversity, equity, and inclusion. And when I look at diversity, again, a data person, I wanted to go back and look at our statistics in Apex from the census and where are we? What does the population look like? This could include gender, it could include age, it could include a whole bunch of things. And so I took a look at some of that data. And I'll just share one tidbit with you. White is 67.2%. Asian is the next highest one at around about 12.4%. Hispanics is the next one, about 8.14%. And then Blacks are about 6.6%. And then there are others as well. So we got to think about our community. This is where it is in 2020. Where was it before? Did we grow in some of those spaces? Are we growing our Asian community? Do we understand their culture? It's empathizing with the different people that come here to Apex. We want to be able to create an inclusive environment, no matter where you are from, no matter how you identify, no matter what your age, no matter if you have a disability or not. So how are we looking at that again, going back to the data? How do we grow the diversity even in our community? What's going to draw some of these other cultures to our community? And so that is one way. One example, recently, I am chairing the MLK event again this year. And we invited a pastor from one of the Spanish-speaking churches, Pastor Jose. And we sent the flyer, excited about it, invited him. We want him to be a speaker at the march when we arrive here at the town. He asked us, do you have it available in Spanish? Wah, wah. We did not prepare it in Spanish, but that is a wonderful idea. Let me work with the town. Let's see if we're able to get that. And thanks to the town staff, we were able to get that done and it went out this morning. And so that's an example of how we didn't think about it out front, but it is important. If he's speaking and he's inviting his membership, then they need to be able to understand what's being done and what's being said. So that is that's one example from a diversity standpoint. And when I think about equity, I looked at the salary ranges and from the census, and the median salary was around like $111,000. And when I think about that, when I came out of college, I was making $111,000. But I liked Apex. I wanted, let's move to Apex. And to be honest, at first, moving here, I was like, but wait, there's a whole lot of trees. So I really want to be here. But then I thought, well, it's tranquil. And then I could go to Raleigh if I want to. So looking at the salaries, right, if that's the median here, then how do we draw the college students so that they don't have to come back here and live with their mothers or their fathers, right, and their parents? So how do we draw them? Seniors, looking at the population of that, we had a smaller category of 75 and above. I think the census said something like 3%, but the next age bracket under that was pretty significant. We need to be preparing for the seniors. How are we doing that? Are they going to be able to afford to stay off of a fixed income? So that's equity. We have to set up the right parameters, the right procedures, and the right processes in order to help people remain here and live here and thrive here.
Thank you.
Ms. Dancy, please provide an example of when your ethics and personal character were challenged, and how did you respond?
So I'll give an example from work. I mentioned I'm a program manager, so I manage many different products and solutions over a broad portfolio. And so often I'm communicating. Most of my day, I'm communicating with somebody. It's email, it's text, it's video, it's in meetings all day. So that is my life. And so I'm reporting status on a particular project, and the project had some external dependencies that were not going well. And I'm reporting it to a certain group, but it wasn't making it all the way to the top. And so when you're getting to those meetings at the top, if those messages aren't getting them, then they're coming in with a certain expectation. They thought the project was still going well. And someone else who I had been working with, instead of him recognizing that the status had been there, he said, "What are you doing? Why isn't the status where it needs to be? And if it's red, why are we just learning that now? When all along the status was being reported just at a different level." So the way I handled that is I didn't handle it right there in the meeting. After the meeting, directly following though, I did ask him if we could speak and talk about what was presented. The way I handled it in the meeting was I'll get the updates to you after the meeting if you'll give me an hour or so to get that to you. And so I met with him, and in that discussion, I said, your information was incorrect, and here's the status. We've been reporting this just at this level, and you've been receiving this. Instead, I said, now it looks like we weren't being honest about where the project was. When we had been, it just wasn't being rolled up. He appreciated the candidacy, and he actually, he didn't apologize that moment, but he came back later and apologized because I did send the information out. And now we're the best work buddies. He supports me, I support him. We had a little this, but then we were able to come back together and support one another with our strengths that we offer each other. And so that is how I've handled one situation in the past.
Thank you so much.
The fifth question is, how will you manage competing requests from constituents?
So competing requests, this can be a difficult one because it does require active listening. It requires some emotional intelligence. It requires talking to the people and getting an understanding from where they're coming from. Because while my initial gut may be one thing or one way, if you hear what the other person has to say, then there may be some common ground, or there may be a finding or an understanding that you're going to come to. So that is critical when you're talking about competing requests. And just like in business, where everybody is coming to me with their different priorities and their different budgets, and they're very passionate about that, that resident that's coming to me, they're passionate about what they're talking about, or they wouldn't come to me to talk about it. And so being there, being available, being present in the moment to listen. The other thing I challenge, though, sometimes we look at the problem in the room, the business issue in the room, and we want to solve it the same way we've always solved it before. And sometimes we need to take a step back and say, are there more innovative ways to do this? Satisfy resident A, satisfy resident B in this request. And so that is also important, that we learn from what we've done, and some of it is good and we should repeat it, but then there may be opportunities for innovative ideas. And sometimes the community member might have the innovative idea. We're not always the smartest person in the room. And so looking at your community and saying, what do you think? How would you solve it? And that may help give us some ideas as we move forward.
I had a follow-up to that. How would you anticipate dealing with projects where residents maybe very passionately, who are nearby might oppose a project, while the community as a whole might benefit from the project.
Yeah, and that can be a difficult one, because again, the smaller community or the smaller number that's very passionate about it, and it may not be going their way because the majority is saying something else. Again, you need to at least listen to both sides and understand where they are coming from. What happens in leadership, though, is sometimes we do have to make the difficult decisions because you're looking at the big picture, the strategic plan. I think what should happen there is really communication is key. Not just making decisions and then not going back and communicating with the people you are impacting. Understanding what that issue is. If it's an issue about construction or roads or something that's coming in and a housing area is going to be displaced. What does that mean to the person that's going to be displaced? If they've been living here 30, 40 years, that's huge. Their families grew up here. This is memories here. And if we're back at that, this is how much it costs to live in Apex because we don't have affordable housing options or things like that for these families to be displaced to, then how do we address that? How do we address that if they're not making $111,000 to move into this next subdivision, but they still want to stay here in Apex? I personally know people that have had to leave our town because they couldn't afford to live here anymore. And I'd love for them to stay. I'd love to be able for us to have opportunities for them to stay if it's truly a place that they love.
Yeah, one more follow-up. So I think the way sometimes if they want to stay, it often is a situation where the way they can stay is, or the way people can afford to live here is higher density, like apartments or townhomes or duplexes or whatever, that may be right next to single family homes who are going to hate it. And they let us know they hate it. So like, how do you balance that? I mean, it's kind of, you're making somebody mad either way. Either they can't afford to live here, or the people that do live here are going to have something behind them that they don't like.
I think you said the key statement there. It is difficult among 60,000 people to make all 60,000 people happy. And I think that's the leadership part that comes in. So the question comes back to us, what's our strategic plan? Are we trying to be a more diverse community or not? If we are, then we have to look at options on how we bridge into that. If we're not, and that's not our strategic plan, then you align to the strategic plan. So I think it still goes back to what is that strategic plan? And I think it's important, and I've learned this in business. Once a strategic plan is defined, it should not just be a piece of paper that sits there or just lives on the website. Our staff should know what that plan is. Our staff should know what the vision is for Apex so that they can passionately speak about it too, so that whatever they do, whatever decisions they make, they are always going back to, here is what we're doing. It will help even with some of the information that they bring forward. Because if they're thinking about it first, as it relates to the strategic plan, then you're going to see less come across that's not tied to that. So, but it's a lot of communication. It takes time, and it takes relationship building for that as well.
Thank you.
So the next question, what is your favorite part of public service? Why? And what is your least favorite part and why?
Yes. I had a difficult time coming up with just one for my favorite, but I'll start with people. I really am passionate about people and everything I do. So whether it's managing their human resources, whether it's picking up trash on the highway with a group of people, they're my passion. How can I impact your life for the better? Because I had so many people do that for me, and even still now. The second favorite part is planning and seeing the plan take place. I don't know if y'all remember the show A-Team. I'm probably dating myself there too with Mr. T. They used to love to see a plan come together. I love to see a plan come together. I just do. My people know me. And sometimes they have, my friends and sisters have to reel me in a bit because I can see the plan, but sometimes the plan needs to take a little different direction. And so even though I see it, even though it's laid out, new things come up. You have to factor those new things in and then be okay with shifting if you have to shift. It's not bad. Times change. And so if we've been planning something for 2 years and it's not the right thing to do anymore because the community has shifted, then we should look at that. And that can be hard to do because it does mean change. My least favorite is how cutthroat and challenging it can be when they're polarizing positions. And that's something you've been hitting on with your question, Councilman Brett. It's sometimes in the battle of the discussion, there can be tension. But as I mentioned with the example that I gave from work with the person that I felt didn't handle that situation appropriately, there's a way we can handle that and still come back together and say we're a team. And we're on the same strategic goals. We have the same vision. Our hearts are all in the same place. Now, how do we come together and execute on that? How do we do this? I heard you. It's us being empathetic with one another, because if we can be empathetic with one another inside, then as we go out into the community, that's what they're going to see. Because we've already talked through those polarizing positions. And so now we know how to, work with the community on that, because we've had some banter about it. But then we can go out and have a good dinner on Statham Street and, talk to each other and have fun afterwards. So it's that polarizing that can be daunting sometimes, but it comes with the territory too.
That's the last question. Please provide an example of how you were able to work through a problem when you disagreed with team members about something that was very important to you.
So I'll give 2 examples. One is from church. I am an ordained minister as well. And yes, churches still have disagreements. Members in churches still have disagreements. Amen. So there was an issue that came up, and it was a very technical issue from my standpoint. That's how I would describe it. It was the use of electronic Bibles versus a physical Bible. I'm going, what does that matter? Like, it's same text in this one as it is in this one, but still having to hear the other person out. And so what I did in that situation was I went to the person and I said, here's why I don't think it should matter. One, everybody doesn't have a physical Bible. So are we going to turn somebody away that comes in that doesn't have a physical Bible? No, you're not. Are you going to say don't use your phone if that's the way that they use their Bible? So we weren't able to come to an agreement. So the next step was we went to the leadership as the next step so that they can kind of help serve as a mediator. And what we ended up doing is finding a happy median. The concern was really about phones with the youth. Well, we know what happens with phones with the youth. They're supposed to be reading the scripture and they playing whatever on their phone instead of listening. Okay, I get that. That's fair. So my feedback was, well, if that's the concern, let's not necessarily force you must use this. Have Bibles available in the room. And then if they are playing on their phones, then their phone gets confiscated and they get to use the Bible that has the pages in it. And so we were able to come to a happy median on that because of that, and not throw out the electronic or the physical Bible in order to do that. The other area I'll talk about is as a nonprofit member. We adopted a highway here in Apex. And it was Friendship Road, which is right near where I live. I was a huge advocate for that because I had heard from many friendship members about how the friendship history is here at Apex. And I thought, man, that'll be historic for us, our name, for this nonprofit to go on that road. And so I advocated for that, and we did proceed to have that as our Adopt a Highway. Well, over time, the support for Adopt a Highway waned. So we had a lot of participation at first, everybody getting out there willing to pick up the trash, and then it would dwindle. And then our strategic planning, we started to adjust, and we changed with what we wanted our focus to be. And so in the end, it came down to a vote, majority vote, similar to the way the council handles things, using Robert's Rules of Order, similar to the way council does things. And even though I still stood in that meeting and advocated that we keep it for the many reasons I just talked about, the majority vote said no. We're going to shift to this. And there were some great things to shift to. But I say all that to say, after that majority vote occurred, now that's the decision we've made. So now how do we proceed working together towards the decision that says this goes away and now these are some of our focus areas? And so that is another way where there were differences in what I thought should happen. I was very passionate because this is my town. And so, yes, I would love for it to be here in Apex. Yes, I would love for us to keep that highway clean. It's an important part of Apex, but the decision was made otherwise.
All right, that was the final question. Thank you very much. So now we're at the point that you are allowed 3 minutes to present closing remarks. So it's on you.
So I do thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to be here among you. I have been anxiously, excitedly anticipating this day, and so I am glad to be here. I thank the council, I thank mayor, the staff, all of the folks who came here as well to support me. I believe Apex truly is a great place to live. I believe that it's a great place where we want people to come to and either visit, spend their money here, you like money that's spent here, bring their families here, etc. So I'm excited about being a part of that. Again, I have a passion for people, and it's my hope that Apex continues to grow with sustainable growth, but we continue to keep this feel of we are inclusive. We are diverse. We are a welcoming place for everyone to come. I wanted to just take a point of privilege and a shameless plug maybe because while I could say more things about me, and I do desire this position, but again, it's about the people for me. And so I would be remiss if I didn't speak about the MLK March that's coming up next weekend. We're going to be starting that on Friday the 13th. It will go through Monday, the 16th. And so we are a beautiful community. I would love for you all listening online, for you all in the room to come out and support. How great it would be if we all came together, all different shades, all different colors, all different backgrounds, demographics, if we came together for that day, that weekend in unity. Friday is going to be a Black authors and artist tour. Saturday is a march with different pastors coming on board to even pray during that time frame, as well as speakers. Sunday is Social Justice Sunday at Apex First Baptist Church. And Monday, for the first time ever, we are having a National Day of Service in Apex. Everybody come out and support the Apex Baptist Church is hosting that. So a thank you to the partners, Zamimi chapter, Apex First Baptist, Apex Baptist Church, and the Phi Lambda chapter as well for supporting us during that. Thank you for your time, and thank you residents for tuning in. I know this has been a long day, and thank you everyone who is in the room.
Thank you so much. All right. Time to shake hands. Don't go away.
Everybody try to
Yeah,
get away.
everyone tries to walk away.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time, we will go ahead and take a 10-minute recess, and then we will begin our public comments after that. So 10 minutes. Thank you. we're back in session. We'll move now to the public hearing, and most of you have had opportunity to look at our public participation policy, kind of understand how this rolls out. But each speaker will have a total of 3 minutes to speak, and there's a timer up there on the podium, green, yellow, and red. So green will be the start, and when it is yellow, you have about 30 seconds left. So you need to come in for a landing, and then red, I would have to politely say, you're done. All right. And we'll move forward. So we're going to go in the order of the way you signed up on the public hearing sign-in sheet. I also want to remind those, if you haven't already, there's still an opportunity for you to sign up. There is a sign-up sheet there on the table. All right. Any questions from council before we move forward?
And
Okay.
they give their name and address like we
Yeah,
normally do?
That's correct. Name and address. In your remarks. Say again? Okay, all right. So just a reminder as well, there have been a total of 12 statements submitted, written statements online, emailed rather, and all statements have been provided to myself and each town council member and available on the temporary at-large council member vacancy webpage. So remind everyone of that. So we'll start with our first speaker. All right, and it is Byron White. I butchered it, I'm sure.
Hi, my name is Lorraine White. My address is 512 Twin Circle Court in Apex, North Carolina, 27502. To the council. As you read in the application submitted by Tayon Din, the versatility of her background speaks for itself in attesting to her qualifications in fulfilling the town council seat that fits vacated. In addition to the change agent that you read about, we are here today for you just to hear a little more about this phenomenal woman. Those of us that are here today in support of her can attest to the fact that she is very intentional in selecting which endeavors to attach her signature of excellence to. She is critical and disciplined in working in timelines so that no responsibility is incomplete or undone. Her knack for reaching across cultural lines to bring the human race together for the higher good is seen even by each of you if you have witnessed the work she's already done here in the great town of Apex. Tayon Dancy is not someone who thought this would be a good thing to do, like playing luck of the draw in the sweepstakes. And just like a brand new home that's move-in ready, Tayon Dancy sits before you today as the councilwoman in waiting. May the town council rest on her. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. White. Okay, next speaker is Gaynell Lowry.
Hello, my name is Gaynell Lowry. My address is 2712 Evans Road, Apex, North Carolina, in the Friendship community. It is with great pleasure to speak to you on behalf of Tayon Dancy today. We all know of or have met someone that is a people person. Well, Tayon is the people's person. With her extreme passion for people and her ability to also get her hands dirty when needed, speaks volumes. I recall her working on the Adopt a Highway project right on Friendship Road with other members of our sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And it was our responsibility to pick up trash and keep Friendship Road clean of any litter, which was a direct contribution to the environment. Tayon is a go-getter. She is motivated and ambitious. And I believe those are some great attributes she possesses. For example, she wanted to celebrate MLK Junior Day right here in our community versus going to a surrounding town to participate in their celebrations. So she petitioned the town to approve MLK Junior Weekend in Apex. The vote was unanimous, and the inaugural MLK Junior Weekend happened virtually due to COVID in 2021. COVID didn't stop Tayon. She spearheaded a virtual march by drone, which can still be viewed on her YouTube page today. From all that hard work and efforts and dedication, she received the Top Thinker Award 2022 from the town of Apex. Her efforts and contributions as a leader and community organizer are limitless and don't go unnoticed. One of her favorite sayings is, "When we are together, we accomplish much." Tayon is all about our community. She doesn't have to get acclimated into the council, for her boots are already on the ground. She participates in affordable housing work groups and committees to help create plans and ways to push forward so that she doesn't have to witness again community members that have had to leave Apex, a place they love, to find affordable housing. Tayon and her family began volunteering with the Brown Bag Ministry, which was founded at St. Andrew's Catholic Church to feed the homeless, a thriving business and great opportunity for our youth to get involved. She then asked our sorority chapter, Western Wake Alumni, to begin a service project with St. Andrew's to continue the Brown Bag Ministry. And from there, she began the project with her own church youth from Mount Zion, who are still a part of the Brown Bag Ministry today with St. Andrew's. Tayon is selfless and motivated, where her goal is to ensure that Apex remains a thriving community with economic stability that will continue to make our town a great place to live, play, work, and retire. Tayon will be a true asset to our town council. Top thinker, true advocate, youthful flavor, amazing organizer with natural ideas. Tayon Dance.
Thank you, Ms. Lowry. Next is Deanna Helms.
Question, does my time start after I get my name?
I am Dina Hamilton. I'm here representing the Western Wake Alumni Chapter Delta Sigma Theta, and our address is P.O. Box 1463 in Apex. Mayor Gilbert and the distinguished members of the Apex Town Council, on behalf of Western Wake Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, the reigning winner of the Think Apex Award nonprofit, and in the absence of our president, Vicky Smith Royal, I have the distinct pleasure of making public comment highlighting the accomplishments and qualifications of Ms. Tayon Dancy, candidate for Town Council. I am Dina Hamilton, first Vice President of Western Wake Alumni Chapter. It is through her connections and her advisement that our chapter partnered with the town of Apex for the inaugural MLK Day observance in spite of a global pandemic. In our sorority, as well as the community, Ms. Dancy intentionally builds relationships. She provides prayer and support for her chapter and others that are in need. She offers her home as a place of refuge, is a chemo buddy, and uses every opportunity to teach and disciple women on how to keep hope alive in their finding of their identity. She also seeks to unite people beyond race and color lines to bridge and achieve a more diverse and inclusive environment in her community and beyond. She is a charter member of Western Wake Alumni Chapter and takes an active interest in the helping of others and increases our chapter's visibility in the Western Wake community. She has served and continues to serve Delta in various capacities and is currently the assistant treasurer in our chapter and the chaplain of the South Atlantic region, which I will say encompasses North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina, as well as Bermuda. She is responsible for all of our spiritual well-being. She has served and continues to serve Delta well. She has been recognized in our chapter with Delta of the Year and the Fortitude Award, and has many other accommodations over the past 12 years of our existence. As a leader in the community, Ms. Dancy served on the board of directors for Wake Up Wake County and the North Carolina Divine Nine Legislative Day Delta Sub-Chair Committee. She is an ordained minister, and she is currently an organizer right here in the town of Apex, where she is gearing up for the third annual MLK celebration. This character testimony of Ms. Dancy is evidence that she is qualified for the position on the Apex Town Council. She is a pillar of the community, a leader in her church and the sorority, and is an all-around outstanding human being. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton. Next on the list is Joanne Martin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joanne Martin, and I've been a citizen of Apex, I guess, since 2000. And I live at 2834 Riley's Pond Drive. That's up in Olive Chapel. And when we first moved to Apex, we were like, oh, we wanted to go rural. You know, we wanted to kind of get out of the city there. We like the small town environment. And then people are like, it's too far out there. So now with all the growth, right, that on part of the planning commissions, what does growth look like for Apex? What do we want it to feel like? You know, we still wanted to have that small town feel. So seeing the growth over the last years, and actually I'm a realtor, so people say, oh, you must be happy, you know, with the growth. And it's like, well, not really. You know, when people can't afford you got to spend $1 million to buy a house, it's kind of a little tough there for a lot of folks. So I actually kind of got into looking at affordable housing and working with our senior committee, or senior groups. And the fact that, we talked about sustainability, right? If we can't service our police or fire, if they can't live in our community, then how do we sustain our community? So part of what I'd like to see is, and there's a lot of diversity on the council right now, and I appreciate that. And one of the things that, and also appreciate the work that you've done the last several years, and this is actually a formidable process that you put together, really first class. So I do want to say that I don't really see someone of age, if I can say that. I lost my husband about 3 years ago, and I found that in working several issues with affordable housing and the senior situation, that there is, and it does seem to be, discrimination against age. So what I'd like to do is recommend Marshall Barnes. You know, he's been around a long time. He and I have taught, oh gosh, I've known him over 20 years. He's a fair person. Actually, I never knew what political party he was. When I talk to him, we talk about issues. We talk about what works, what doesn't work, and look for a way forward to move things forward. And then Mayor Gilbert, thank you. You came to our office the one day and shared your story with us. And I just love your approach. And I feel Marshall has that same approach as well. Let's get to the root cause of the problem. Let's all of us come together. Let's all of us we may not always get everything that we want, but you move forward with a workable solution. So, I believe Marshall has the maturity. He's got the experience. He's got the skills. He's a pretty nice guy all around. So that's it. I'm putting a plug in.
Thank you, Ms. Martin. All right, next is Mildred Avery Lewis.
Good afternoon, Apex Town Council members. I am Mildred Avery Lewis, and my address is 1301 Linden Ridge Drive, Holly Springs, North Carolina, 27540. I would like to personally support Mrs. Tayon Dancy's nomination for the temporary at-large town council seat in Apex, North Carolina. I have known Mrs. Dancy for over 10 years, and I know her to be a woman of integrity. Mrs. Dancy is passionate about her community. She has worked hard to ensure that the town of Apex will continue to be a great place to live. She was instrumental in commemorating the first Martin Luther King weekend in Apex in the year 2021. She has demonstrated her desire to serve her community by being actively involved in other town issues such as affordable housing and strategic planning. She is a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, in which she previously served as chair of the Social Action Committee. Her involvement in social action and her political engagement drives her desire to see that all people are heard and represented. Mrs. Dancy has great communication skills and problem-solving abilities. She is very personable and engages with others well. I am confident that Mrs. Dancy will zealously serve the town of Apex and will be a positive addition to the Apex Town Council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Comments. Next to speak is Marcia Humphrey. Humphrey.
I think there was some confusion. I think some people thought that was a sign-in sheet, just
okay.
For
all right, so we'll cross that one. Are there any other names on the list?
Mr. Clerk.
Okay, oh, there's that one here, so I need to find out.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Carla Ziegler.
Hi, hello everyone. Sorry, I didn't know that I'd have this opportunity to do this, but and so kind of just doing it on the fly here. But my name is Carla Zeigerman. I'm Arno's wife. My address is 1661 Salem Village Drive in Apex, 27502. And just wanted to, I couldn't sit here all afternoon and then not step up and say something on behalf of Arno. I think he's a perfect candidate for town council. And just to share with you what I know about him as his, what he called his current wife, I'm his old wife. Anyhow, I know Arno to be a very dedicated, committed, ambitious, focused person who doesn't take a commitment lightly. I know that he's shared with you all that he recently became a citizen, I think about 5 years ago, and got really involved and really interested in local politics where he felt like he could have an impact. And I said, wow, you're really taking this citizen thing seriously. And within 5 years, he's voting and running for an office. He does his homework. You know, it's something that like he takes things seriously. He's going to do his homework. He's going to study things and make sure he understands it fully before he makes a decision or takes something on, which he has done with this. What else do I want to say? I asked him when he told me he wanted to do this. We had a long conversation about it, and he knew that he wasn't going to do it without my support. And so we had a long conversation about it, and he shared with me what motivates him to do this is, you know, he has worked in corporate America for a long time, but has in his heart to do something more service oriented, and sees that he can make an impact on the council and for the town, positive impact, and I believe he can. 55 seconds left. He's the kind of guy that what I say about him a lot is you want him on your team. Like when you're picking a team, he's somebody I want on my team because I'll have your back and he'll work hard. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this, and thank you for considering Arno.
Thank you, Ms. Zegger. Thank you for your comments and clarified comments too. All right, that was the last speaker listed on our sign-up sheet, so therefore we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this time. And just another reminder to the public, and of course my colleagues on council, we will not be making a decision tonight. It's not your vote, but we will have some deliberations here. So you're welcome to stay and listen. And of course, the vacant position will be appointed at the next regular scheduled council meeting, which is Tuesday, 6 o'clock p.m. All right, so before we move on with that, I do want to recognize another distinguished guest tonight that's in the audience. Certainly one we all know very well, former Mayor Pro Tem Nicole Dozier. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. Thank you. All right, I just want to say again, thanks to all the speakers that came and spoke in the public hearing, and also all of the candidates. This is an amazing step. And, you know, one of the things I will say in this role as mayor, you get a lot of people that do present their passion, and they're really engaged. We have a pretty engaged community, but when you have someone that steps up and says, hey, I want to be a part of the solutions here in this town and work with an amazing council, that's impressive to me. And everything that's presented tonight was something that we all share that is important for the town of Apex. So I just want to thank you for stepping up to do that. So with that, there's much we can talk about tonight. And, you know, when you talk about, everything before making a vote. But what do you say? And where do you begin? And so where I begin is it's going to be a tough call. Because again, when you don't have all the seats that you want, so many people who are engaged, it's really a tough call. So I'll kind of comment to Councilman Mahaffey. He's been doing some homework about expanding the councils this year. So maybe one day we'll get there, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, I just want to share those things and turn over to my colleagues, and let's get some discussion here. So anyone want to step up and present some remarks?
I'll jump in. So, I'm really excited about every person who came forward today and who also applied. There were a number of folks that I know when we all had a chance to make our selection, there were a number of folks that, we may have selected who didn't get to this stage. And I'm incredibly buoyed by the level of participation that we got in this process. And that, I think, speaks volumes about the quality and the nature of the folks who are here. This is not gonna be easy. I walked in here going, I want to hear what everybody has to say. I fully walked in here thinking that by the end of the night, I would be in one direction or the other. I am disappointed that I am not in one direction or another, because every person that was before us brought a different level of quality and concern, and then quite frankly, love to this town that I think is important for all of us to be able to remember. It is important. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. And I think that, when I look at those who came forward, I'm glad that we had diversity in age. I'm glad we had diversity in terms of ethnic background. I'm glad that we had diversity in terms of those who work within downtown and those who work in RTP, those who have been living here, those who have been moving in here. This is great. I'm so excited about the nature and quality of those who came forward that it just, once again, makes me very proud to be here in Apex. I'm not looking forward to the next 4 days. I know the next 4 days I am going to be going, all right, ranking everybody 1 through 4, and then re-ranking everybody 1 through 4, and then doing it again, and then doing it again. So I can say only one thing with absolute confidence. I won't know who I am going to be putting my name behind until Tuesday night. I know that for a fact. Because I do want to make sure I get the reflections of not only those who are on council, but I fully anticipate that we'll continue to get comments from the public. And I want to make sure that we're considering all of those things, because this is an important decision. And we want to make sure we're weighing all those things. So thank you to all of you for coming here. I really appreciate it. I'm excited because each one of you that were here was somebody that was on my list. That to me, I think that's exciting, and I'm so glad that y'all put in the effort. So that's all I gotta say right now until I go home and agonize some more.
We can always watch the video again, right?
Oh yeah, don't think I'm not quick.
Will that be available tonight? Okay, very good. All right. Thank you for your comments, sir.
Yeah, I just want to add on to that. I want to say, everyone, this process in a couple of ways has not gone the way that I would have predicted. And insofar as that, the reason that I was excited about setting up this process was because I was afraid we would not get a lot of participation. I was like, man, we got this vacancy. We have one random guy apply. We have to appoint him because the only one that applied. It's going to be, this is not the best way to do it. So let's make this big system where we advertise and get people to participate. We ended up getting 31 separate applications. 34 applications. That was not my guess. An overwhelming response is fantastic. I had a lot of heartburn trying to narrow that down to the people we were allowed to select. We get 7 selections. There was at least a dozen that was worthy, that I really wanted to make it my final. final selection. And here I am now with 4 people, any 4 of them, all 4 of the people here we interviewed, more than qualified in any circumstance. And what I'm having heartburn about now is that no matter what happens, 2 things are gonna be true. 1, we're definitely gonna get a well-qualified member of the town council, no matter what happens. And 2, there'll be 3 very disappointed people who can correctly argue that they could have done the job and had a lot of good assets that they were on the table. And something that you just said, Councilmember Gray, like what's striking is the way the system ended up and the finalists that we got, they're all complementary and bring different assets to the table, like in different ways. All 4 of the finalists all have different, they all bring things the others don't, and it's a tough place to be in. And I don't know what to do. So I'm definitely gonna watch the video again. And I guess I want to make one other point again to what I said. There's going to be 3, 1 very qualified person who will be on the town council, 3 very disappointing qualified people who will unfortunately not be appointed. We have plenty of boards on the town council or in the Apex government, planning board, board of adjustment, parks and rec, a bunch of advisory positions. And I know it's maybe not worth much to say, but if you want to throw it out there that, any of the applicants, please consider applying for these. We have, dived into your resumes and heard more about your background than any other applicant I've seen for any of these other boards. So it certainly would be to your benefit if you don't succeed in this appointment to further continue applying some other opportunities that we have to serve the community. I'd really appreciate that. And I'll say it now, and I'll probably say it again on Tuesday. I'm really sorry that whatever the 3 people don't get appointed, that I'm really having a lot of heartburn about this. We've all wonderful applicants, and thank you for coming in and thank you for applying.
Thank you, Councilman.
Well, I do have to say that I echo the comments of council members, and I can say that there is not going to be a wrong decision because we have 4 well-qualified, great candidates here that will do a wonderful job. So I greatly appreciate all the time that y'all have put into this, the time that staff has put into this to make this process very open and transparent and extensive. So that we have the great candidates that we have now. Yeah, I'm gonna have a little bit of hard time with this as well.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
So I'll wrap this up. During my time on the town council, I have found the job to be relatively unglamorous. It's a lot of difficult choices. Oftentimes, a lot of it's, especially a growing town like Apex, involves development, which oftentimes has people who are unhappy with the decisions that are made either way, and that weighs on me. But it's been a huge honor as well the past few years, and it's also been, I feel like, very impactful personally because of the huge influence, hopefully positively, that we've had on residents at this kind of local level. I hope we're approachable. I think people let us know in the public hearings sometimes over and over again what they want to see happen, which is great. It's hard to get that once you get, even I think the county level is hard, and then obviously Congress and above, who knows where the information goes. So this local level is so important on people's lives, the impact it can have, the choices that we make, you can see them next door. You build a road or a park or development, you see that happen, almost immediately or, in a few years. And so that's why this job has been such a delight and an honor also to serve. And so I sense that the 4 of you guys have shared those feelings and are in it for the right reasons, and that's to serve the people here and to make Apex better and to be this kind of lowest level of government for our residents. And so thank you for everybody for applying. The 31, I found that to be a daunting task as well, trying to figure out my selections. And we could use each and every one of those 31 and the 3 who aren't selected. We can use you in this town in many ways. So I hope you guys stay involved, and I look forward to the selection on Tuesday.
All right, with that, again, we'll reconvene with this process, final part of it, on Tuesday, January 10th at the town council meeting. So Are there any other comments from council members?
Mayor, you may want to mention, we've, because it's gonna be a long meeting on Tuesday, we've all kind of collectively decided to move this thing to the beginning of the meeting. So you're not there at like 10 PM waiting for this decision. So hopefully the suspense will be relatively short-lived on Tuesday compared to what it could be. So,
Thank you for that.
What if we have like 27 rounds of voting now?
I mean, it's been happening in Washington. As much as possible, but it should be a relatively quick decision. And maybe it's worth saying, like, I don't think moving it up doesn't mean, I think we're still doing planning on the swearing in happening after that meeting. So even if we're won't be voting on developments on Tuesday, but
They get sworn in at a future date.
sworn in at a future date. I think it's on the timeline. Right. So anyway.
I do want to add one thing. I want to bring it back to our clerk and the process that we have here in place and just thank the clerk. And you, I mean, everyone in this room or the applicants know that this is a very transparent process. This was, I think, I was saying to someone earlier, 4 towns are going through this right now. Everyone has a vacancy. It's like the thing now. Like Cary has a vacancy. We got a vacancy. Alice Springs has a vacancy. Fuquay has a vacancy. And there's no fixed process. And the process that we're going through today was put together primarily by our clerk working with the council. I think it is absolutely wonderful. The transparency's been here the whole step of the way. I think at the end of the day, we'll have maybe some people who don't like the decision that was made at the end, but hopefully everyone can appreciate that the process itself was fair, fantastic, transparent, exactly what you want to see in local government. So I'd like to give a round of applause to our clerk here for everything you've done for us so far.
He's just there. All right, thanks for your comments. All right. Anything else? All righty. I will say one last thing is I heard a theme here tonight from everyone presented, and it's all about working together. And as I always like to end every event, I will have to make this quote. There is nothing we can't accomplish when we work together. This is a thanks for coming out tonight. It's been a long day. We got into the evening. So go home, enjoy your time, and we will see you on Tuesday evening. Meetings adjourned.